2025 brings many changes to the F1 grid, with 8 out of 10 teams changing their driver pairing and 6 new rookies joining the grid. But how will all these driver pairings fare? Will Lewis Hamilton perform better than Charles Leclerc? Will they have a power fight? Will Kimi Antonelli outperform George Russell? Let's get into it. I'm going to be rating all of the teams and their driver pairings for the 2025 F1 season. I will be basing this on how well I think the drivers will jive with each other, how well I think their relationship will be, as well as how well I think they will collectively perform. I'm going to be ranking each driver pairing out of 10, and I will be going in order of which team I think will have the best driver pairing and which will go last. Some are tied, it's not quite ranked, it's more rated, but we'll see how we go. Let's just get into it. The team I think will have the best driver pairing is Ferrari, with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Shocker, I'm rating them a 9 out of 10. I think they'll do very well. Obviously, both drivers are fantastic and have the capability of winning a driver's championship, but that's where the problem comes in. I think there might be a concern over who gets prioritized. I think obviously the priority has to go to Lewis Hamilton, given he's going to retire pretty soon. The whole point of him going to Ferrari is to try to get his 8th with Ferrari. So Charles kind of has to take the back seat in that sense. And for most cases, I think he will be okay taking the back seat in that case. He's put Ferrari above himself many times in a way that Carlos simply hasn't. So I'm not concerned in that sense. But my concern is that I think Ferrari will do pretty well in 2025. 2026 is a different story. Nobody knows how anybody is going to perform in 2026. 2025 might be the only chance for both Charles and Lewis, and that puts Charles in a difficult position. If you have an opportunity to win a championship, you're going to try to take it. And so if the preference is going to Lewis, which I think it would and should, that might build some resentment. I think it's mostly going to be fine. I think Lewis joining shows some promise in Ferrari in 2026. So I think that will ease it out, and obviously Charles will be aware of how the car is developing. So for most of the part, I think it's going to be fine, which is why I've put it at a 9 out of 10. I just can't do it 10 out of 10 just in case. Just in case. I'm also going to put Lewis as performing better than Charles. Again, I think that Lewis has rested mentally most of the season. He's been preparing for this. I think he's going to go and grab whatever chance he has fully, and I think Ferrari is going to support him in doing that. And so for that reason, I think that Lewis will outperform Charles. Moving on, we are to Williams, who I think will have the second best driver pairing. I'm going to rate Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz with 8 out of 10. I think Sainz will outperform Alex Albon. I think that this pairing is exactly what Williams need. Both Sainz and Albon are very reliable drivers. They're very stable, like mentally. They're able to do the job that needs to be done. However, I think this will be more of a test of Alex Albon than anything. I think, we haven't had a good gauge of how he's performed. Obviously, he didn't do well in the Red Bull, and that might have knocked his confidence. He's done just fine in the Williams. He's done amazingly in the Williams, but we don't have a gauge of the car, really. I think we know where Sainz is. We know what Sainz can do. I think his performance will sort of dictate how good of a driver that Alex Albon is. I do think he's going to be better. I do think Sainz is going to be better than Alex Albon. I'm just not sure about how much. Again, I think this is a very stable pairing. My only concern is if Sainz way outperforms Alex Albon, what that could do to Alex, if he might get a little pissed at that. But I think they both know what their job is. They both know that their goal is to work towards building Williams. They're not really in a super competitive place. There's no reason for them to be fighting each other. The goal is to progress the team, and so I think they'll be able to do that. In third place, I have McLaren, rated at a 7 out of 10 with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. I think Lando Norris is going to outperform Oscar Piastri. I don't think this is much of a surprise. I'm pretty mixed on this. I'm confident in my 7 out of 10, but I think this could go either way. I think if Oscar Piastri really steps up and becomes the driver that he's sort of been promised to be in his third season here, I think McLaren will have a problem. They've obviously already had problems with priority. No, that's not even true. I was going to say most times Lando gets priority, but that's simply not true. I think that they've done an okay job so far, in the sense that there hasn't been a lot of obvious animosity between the drivers and public. But if they get to an equal level, we're good. Like, McLaren's gonna have a real problem, and I think that could impact them in the drivers' championship. Constructors potentially too, depending how mad they get at each other. They decide to start crashing each other out, whatever. So I'm just concerned about that. I don't think we'll get there this season, which is why I'm putting it at a 7 out of 10. So that if Oscar Piastri doesn't get to the level of Lando Norris, that kind of brings up potentially other problems, not necessarily problems, but just a different scenario. I think if Oscar sort of stays where he is, then Lando will tend to get priority. I think they'll realize at a certain point that Lando has a better chance at the drivers' championship. But my question is, at what point do they realize that? Because obviously this season they haven't. If they wait too long to make that decision, that becomes a problem, and that would breed a lot of resentment for Lando, I think. The other problem is if Oscar Piastri doesn't step up. At this point, he's sort of not living up to his promise. Everybody's rated him very highly. Everybody thinks he could be a driver's championship, and not to say that because you aren't at that level in the third season that you're not going to be, because that's just not true. But I think he has to step up in the next few years. Otherwise, McLaren's not going to want to keep him. My fourth place driver pairing, I have Haas with Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon. I've rated them 7 out of 10 as well, but I'm putting them below McLaren. McLaren obviously has a better level of performance within the team. It's a fully new driver pairing. None of them have been with Haas before, and we have a rookie in there. I think that Ollie Behrman will outperform Esteban Ocon. I think of all the rookies, excluding Lawson, I'm not sure where Lawson's going to end up, but I think of all the real rookies, I think Ollie Behrman will catch up to speed the fastest. He's already proven himself multiple times. We know he can drive the car. It's just about keeping that level, which I think he'll be able to do. I'm the most confident in him. And then Esteban Ocon is a pretty reliable driver. Where my concern comes in is that there has been issues with Ocon and his teammates in the past. I'm hoping that that Haas will be a positive environment and that won't be an issue, because I think that it was people in the team, in the environment, that caused the issues at Alpine, not necessarily the driver pairing itself. But that's also another concern. Just, you have to put it out there because of his history. I'm hoping that they'll be able to put the priority of the team over fighting each other. But I think if your Esteban Ocon and a rookie comes in and starts beating you, which I think he will, you're not going to feel good. With that, though, I do think we've kind of seen Esteban Ocon hit his ceiling. I think he's at the level he's going to be. I think it just is going to depend on where Haas will end up. But I think Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman will be a good pairing to push Haas forward. And I think this will go decently. In fifth position, with a rating of 6 out of 10, I have Red Bull with Max Verstappen and Liam Lawson. I'm not convinced that Liam Lawson will finish out the season. I think there's a chance that Isaac Hayter really proves himself and there's a change. Verstappen is just an issue. Verstappen is obviously one of the best drivers on the grid, if not the best driver on the grid currently. And so that is just such a huge blocker for anybody that is going to be his teammate. Nobody wants to be beside Verstappen because they're really going to end up behind Verstappen. And so for that reason, you're just never going to get amazing quality drivers beside Verstappen, because then it's a blocker. You never want to be Verstappen's teammate because the priority is going to Verstappen. And if you're potentially a championship winning driver, you're going to need to go to a different team that's going to prioritize you. Also, Lawson is still a rookie, kind of. Going into the Red Bull in your first full season is crazy. And I'm just not convinced that he is going to be able to keep up. I think he might be a little crash happy at the beginning of the season, and by the end he'll sort of level out. But I think he's going to be just fine. I don't think he's going to be fantastic, and so that's why I'm placing it at a 6 out of 10. I just think Verstappen makes a difficult driver pairing in general. There's never going to be a perfect pairing because, again, a fantastic driver is not going to want to go beside him. And to get the car super fast, it's just going to be hard for anybody else to drive except for Verstappen, which just causes an issue. So I think kind of a 6 out of 10 is the best we can get right now. And so that's where I'm at. Down in number 6 with a 6 out of 10, we have Mercedes with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. I think George Russell will outperform Kimi Antonelli. I'm happy with George Russell. I think George Russell is a fantastic driver. I think he is very capable of driving the Mercedes and driving the Mercedes well, obviously. On his day, he can drive a fantastic race, win races, do the damn thing. He also does not seem to be a driver that needs a second driver to support him. I think that without support, he'll do just fine, and he has done just fine, which is why I think Kimi Antonelli is the choice that makes sense. Obviously, it was always going to be Kimi Antonelli in that seat. The problem is Kimi Antonelli is a complete rookie, and putting a rookie into a Mercedes is a choice. I don't disagree with it, but I think that 2025 is a bit of a write-off of a season for Antonelli and Mercedes. I think the whole point is that you give him a season to just catch up, and then 2026 with the new regs is when things really get going. So I don't think that's a problem. I think that makes complete sense. However, I just don't think that he's going to do fantastic, and that's fine. I don't think he's expected to. I think if he came out of the gate beating George Russell, that would be a problem for George Russell more than it would be a quality of Kimi Antonelli. Like, obviously it would show that Kimi Antonelli is a great driver, but I think it would say something worse about George Russell, and I just don't think it will. So for that reason, I think they will drive well. I just don't think it's going to be, both drivers aren't going to be on their A game. The focus for Antonelli is going to be just getting up to speed, and that's fine. Down in 7th position with a rating of 6 out of 10, we have Alpine with Pierre Gasly and Jack Doohan. Now, my concern is that they are setting Jack Doohan up for failure completely. I think by signing Franco Colapinto as a reserve driver, and now they have multiple reserve drivers, and being so public about Franco Colapinto is an issue. I think they are putting way too much pressure on him and just not setting him up for success. I think that could really get into his head, and he'll never really get his feet under him. I hope that's not what happens. I just don't feel good about how Alpine is acting publicly. So for that reason, I can't really rate it higher than this. I think Gasly will obviously do better. He's a very stable driver. He's a reliable driver, and for a rookie getting up to speed like in the first season, over the course of a season, I think Gasly will just do better than a rookie. I hope Doohan does really well. I'm just not sure it'll be there. I also rate Gasly pretty highly, but I think he's, again, has reached his capacity. This is the level of driver he is. I think he can help get Alpine to the next level, but he himself won't necessarily take Alpine to the next level to the point of winning championships. I think he can help him get into the points more consistently towards the end of the season. That's what has been happening, but I don't know. I'm concerned about the environment at Alpine, and so it's hard to remove that from the drivers themselves, and so I can't really put it above a 6 out of 10. Down, ranked number 8, we have Racing Bulls with a rating of 5 out of 10. They have Yuki Tsunoda and Isaac Hadjar. I'm going to rate Yuki Tsunoda over Isaac Hadjar. I haven't watched F2 much this past year. I watched it in 2023, and so what I've seen of Hadjar is he's a little bit crash happy and a little bit hot-headed and aggressive. That seems to be the type of driver that Red Bull likes to go for. But if you don't channel it the right way, it's just a problem, and I'm concerned that it will be a problem. Obviously, we know how Tsunoda performs. He can do what he needs to do for Racing Bulls. He's a great driver for Racing Bulls. I'm not concerned about him. I just think Isaac Hadjar can taste the Red Bull seat. He knows if Liam Lawson doesn't perform and he does, it could be his. He also knows they have Arvin behind him getting ready to go in there as well, and so I think there's a lot of pressure on him, and I think he might just try a bit too hard too fast, and it could go a little bit wacky. Yeah, I'm just not sure his aggression will be channeled the right way, and I think it could not turn out well, and so for that I can't really put it above a 5 out of 10. Okay, second last, 9th, we have Sauber, and I'm rating them 5 out of 10 as well. They have Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto. I think Hülkenberg will outperform Bortoleto over the course of the season, but I think near the end, Bortoleto will catch up. Obviously, we know Nico Hülkenberg is a pretty reliable driver. He was signed to Sauber as they turn into Audi for a reason. I think he's going to be very instrumental in developing the car, and he's going to be a great voice for Audi to listen to, and I think that's his purpose. I think Bortoleto is who they've hired to really take Audi somewhere, and which is why they've brought him in this year, so he has a year to catch up, similar to Kimi Antonelli, and then 2026 is when we really get going. Both new drivers to the team, new chemistry with them both. We have the rookie in Bortoleto. I think it'll go fine, but again, I just don't think this is not the season for them to show off. This is the season for them to all get ready for the turn into Audi into 2026. I'm not expecting much from this. I don't think it'll go badly. It's just not going to be fireworks in the same sense that Haas is going to be it. I think that Haas is ready to move forward a bit faster than Sauber is, and I think specifically Ollie Behrman is a bit more comfortable in the cars and is ready to move forward faster than Gabriele Bortoleto will be. Last, predictably, I have Aston Martin. I've rated them 4 out of 10. I think Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso are tired. I think Alonso's going to outperform Stroll, obviously, but I think, Fernando's getting a little bit old. He might be getting literally tired, and I think Stroll just doesn't have the drive. Obviously, I think if your dad owns the team and you have a seat, like guaranteed you have a seat if you want it, there's just not a push for you to want to perform amazingly. And then, yeah, like Alonso's just getting up there in age. I think that they had their chance in the beginning of 2023 and never really went anywhere. They didn't develop the right way. I'm not convinced that they'll do better in 2025. And I think it just feels stale over there. It feels really stale. It feels like there needs to be a change. I know that Adrian Newey is coming in and changing things up, but again, I think we won't really see that until 2026. And so if anybody gets reignited, that's when it will be. But I think, again, this driver pairing is just kind of waiting it out until then. I don't expect anything crazy. I also don't expect them to perform fantastically. I think the drive for both of them would come from the team performing well, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think they might actually get pushed back a little bit. I think Alpine and Haas might move up out of the midfield, and I think Aston Martin might kind of fall back behind them. They've just been nowhere. Not excited about it. I think they'll perform fine. Obviously, their chemistry is fine, but I think the others have potential to do better collectively and individually. So those are my ratings and sort of unintentional rankings of all of the gyro pairings for the 2025 F1 season. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, follow the show, comment, rate the show, all of those things. I would really appreciate it. And also let me know what other videos you'd like to see. We have a few more until the off season is over. I'm running out of ideas and I need help. So please let me know if you have any, and I will happily make those videos. And with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.